Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to make a tier list on which are the best knights to use in the Relic of God game mode in Seiya Legend of Justice. Now this has been a really fun game mode because first of all you have a box which I think you can have like 40 different knights. So it really allows you to try to use certain knights that you have really before never used them because you know they are quite lower down in your teams etc. So it really quite nice in that scenario. The boss fights are also really challenging. It's unlike kind of some of the other your normal guild boss or the normal world boss where you always have the same 5 or 6 knights. This one, because the boss actually kills you off really quickly, it do once again allows you to try different combination. So yeah, it's a really fun game mode. And because of that, I really want to make this tier list to just kind of tell you who would be the best knights in this game mode. Now, I will briefly explain exactly how I have laid out this tier list because right now it looks quite overwhelming. Like, why do I have so many different tiers? And I'll explain exactly why now. So, the main focus of this game mode is obviously on how fast and how many times you can kill the final boss, which is Senators and Hypnos. Now, they hit extremely hard. Not just them, but also Radamancer. So there are 4 bosses in this game mode. The first one, Ophi, he doesn't hit very hard. He controls one of your enemies, so that's a bit annoying. But other than that, like all of your knights would be able to easily survive. However, then the next 3, Radamancer's Pandora, Centaur slash Hypnos, they hit extremely hard, and there's just absolutely no way that you would be able to survive most of the fight without anyone of your knight dying. So it's just really hard. However, obviously your own Alaya, your own equipment, your constellation, your level, your resonance level, etc. They do help. I mean, resonance level is kind of evened out, but still, you have your gears, you have your Alaya, which would then actually determine how hard you hit and how long you can survive. And that's kind of why at the top of the tiers, I have 2 categories, which are all for boss. The first one is for the boss carry. So this is who is actually going to do the damage on the boss, or who would actually be able to do, let's say, inflict electricity effects such as Aurora or Virgo Shun, who are able to inflict electricity, so you can do more damage. They are the one really doing the damage. Or uh, they are responsible so that you deal higher damage against the boss. However, if you just put a team of 5 against the boss, you're gonna die. And that's where the lifeguard comes in. Those are the knights who may not necessarily do huge amount of damage. However, they will try to help your team to survive for as long as possible. So now if you have both of them together, you have a team which both hit hard and can hopefully also survive for a really long time. And that's why they're really important. Now, in terms of the actual composition, uh, what I normally find is that, for example, if I'm up against Radamensis, normally just having Patomi or maybe Aphrodite is going to be enough for vast majority of the battle. However, once you move on to Pandora, Santos, and Hypnos, you find, against Pandora, I may need like 2 or 3 lifeguards or healers trying to help my team survive. And in the last fight against Santos, I sometimes have to bring 4 healers and only 1 DPS just to try to survive for the whole battle. And that's kind of why you see a lot more lifeguard than the carry. And that's kind of what I generally recommend as well, is that as you progress through the game modes, as you move to the later boss, you do probably need more of those lifesavers in your team rather than actually trying to do the damage. So yeah, so those are kind of the 2 tiers. Now, other than that, I also have 5 other tiers. Each one of them refers to one of the factions. So you have the light and dark faction, you have the fire, you have the water, you have the air, you have the earth. Now, the reason why I have laid out my tier list this way is that there's one very important concept in this game mode, which is the concept of stamina. Now, because you want to do the most amount of damage to your to the final boss, etc., vast majority of the time you want to save the stamina on your characters, right? I do not want to waste stamina of my Seiya GC got close on a random fight to take one of the level up tiles. I don't want to do that because I want to conserve my stamina so that I can use him for the boss fight to for more damage, for example. So a lot of the ones here I would really recommend you try not to play them at all outside of boss battle. Try to save as much stamina as you can. Obviously, I try to order them in a way of importance. So for some of the later ones, like if you really run out of knights, for example, I wouldn't mind too badly if I have to use my Sheena, or if I have to use my Iris in one of the PvE fight, or if I have to use, my Athena, normal Athena, water Athena, or if I have to use my Chameleon June. Like, I'm not too bothered. However, I definitely want to avoid, Seiya GC, Pandora, Podomi, Aphrodite in my normal battles, PvE battles to take the top. So that's kind of why you try to conserve the stamina as much as possible on those two tiers. However, what you'll notice is that for level 6 tiles and also for level 5, some of the level 5 tiles, what happens is that there are debuffs in those fights where there's an icon which basically says, like, if you deploy any knights other than one particular element, what you're going to see is that the rest, like all of the other elements, all of the other faction knights, they are gonna be I think like their HP is gonna be cut down by half, and they're also gonna be stunned for 5 seconds. So like some ridiculous debuff like that. Those are ridiculously hard for you to do that, and basically the idea here is that you actually work together with other people in your guild. So, for example, if you need 3 teams to take down level 6, and the restriction is that anything except for fire is gonna get that debuff, then what you actually want to do is that you want to have 3 people working together in your guild, each one taking down one team, and each one using a mono fire team, so that you're able to work collectively together to take that tile. So that's kind of the strategy there. And obviously, if we talk about a mono element team, you only need 5 people, right? There's no way you can take a level 6 tile by yourself because first of all, it's hard to find 15 knights of the same element in your box. And second of all, a lot of them are going to be really useful for your boss battle. So you don't want to do that either, right? So it just makes absolutely no sense for you to try to take one of the higher level tiles by yourself. You should always work together in your guild. And if you're working together to do that, then that basically means for every single one person, you only need to take care of one team. So therefore, you should only have maximum 5 people in your element. And that's kind of why I have then made those other tiers, which is I picked the 5 best knights remaining in each of the factions, and now I'm saying, okay, if you do have to pick a mono fire team, then those are probably going to be the top 5 that you should consider outside of your boss characters. Now, obviously, if you only have a box of 40, if you add up all of the knights I have on my screen, it's probably going to be more than that. And obviously, some of you may not have all of the knights. For example, like Dante, if you have never if you have always used him as food, you wouldn't have him at higher level. So in that case, you may then actually do have to resort to using one of your other boss fighting characters. But all I'm saying is that in a highly optimized world, imagine if you do have anything and you are able to conserve all of the stamina for this all of this nights for the final boss battle, then this would be the best 5 in the out of the remaining box for each of the element, and that's what you should try to do in your story maps, etc. So that's kind of the reason why you will notice Earth only have 4, and that's mainly because a lot of the Earth knights are actually really good. Like they're really good for the boss battle, either to save your life or to do damage. And that's why it's actually I can't even find like a first Earth Knight for me to use it. So if you are trying to do a mono Earth team for your PvE to take the tiles, unfortunately you have to pick one of the other ones from your boss battle. So that's just the reality until they add more new Earth Knights, etc. All right, now let me go through the tier one by one. But I think the general way of how you should read this tier list should already be clear. You try to fill in your box with as many as you can from the kind of the first 2 tiers, so that you can concentrate on boss. And then for any other free slots you have available, try to fill them in. Try to concentrate on just 1 or 2 elements first to make sure you have a solid 5. It's absolutely fine because you'll be working together in a whole guild anyway. There's no requirement for you to have 5 knights of every single element because you will be working together. Maybe you only need to cover 2 or 3 elements, and the other people in the guild can also cover others, etc. And then you guys just rotate between all of you. That's also absolutely fine. So there's absolutely no necessity for you to actually have every single knight on my tier list. Now, if you are trying to fill in your box, like I said, try to start off. So I believe at the start of the game, you have 15 free slots. Try to start off with all of those boss characters, maybe 1 or 2 from on the remaining one, so you can actually do PvE without wasting the stamina on the boss character. But definitely, put your Seiya GC, put your Potomi, Aphrodite there from the first minute, so that they can have the maximum number of stamina, etc. But just don't use them for any of the battles. However, as you unlock new slots, try to add in more from the boss, or if you do actually have slots to add in some of the other PvE, then try to do it element by element, so that you actually have a good coverage towards one particular mono team, etc. All right, now starting from the top, all of the people who can do massive amount of damage to, I have ordered everything in a hierarchy order as well, right? So the ones on the left is always better. Say GC, absolutely ridiculous amount of DPS by far. If we are simply talking about damage output, say GC is the highest. If you talk about survivability, against Pandora, he is really bad because he life drain and sometimes Pandora make any healing you do actually turns that into damage. So he's bad against Pandora. However, in the last boss against Senators and Hypnos, even though they hit ridiculously hard, there are occasions where Marseille GC is able to last survive for the entire 90 seconds by himself. Like even though all of my other healers have already died like 20 seconds in, like Seiya GC is still able to continuously survive, and that's just how crazy he is. So definitely the best damage dealer by himself. Pandora, absolutely great damage dealer as well. But on top of that, she can also heal. She can also have this almost like immortality status inflicted to one of your team to help them to make them survive for a bit longer. So that's why she's extremely good both as a damage character but and also as a lifeguard. So if you have to pick the best all-rounded character in this relic mode, I think Pandora is probably the best character for that because she can just literally do everything. Then we have Honda Steering, very similar to Pandora. He heals, he buff up the team so you can do more damage, and also his ultimate can actually hit quite a bit as well, especially if you have his Constellation 9. He actually hits quite hard as well, so he is also really, really good character for like all rounded. Then you have Poseidon. Poseidon is just a good DPS. Same with Radamances. They just do high amount of damage. They don't really provide any other utility, so they're just there for doing pure damage. You have then Leo Aurora and also Virgo Shun. They are also there for kind of reducing enemies' defense or inflicting electricity state. And also, Capricorn Sure, they either reduce defense or allow you to do more damage. So they're more kind of like the buffing up your damage output side of things. So, but they also obviously increase your boss damage output. Then we have Sheena and Aurorus. They are also very similar to Poseidon and Radamances. They also just do damage, like pure DPS damage. They are a bit more fragile from what I've seen. I mean, Aurorus is okay, but Sheena is quite fragile. So they are probably not going to be your first choice if you do have to do kind of like damage in terms of pure damage. And sometimes I actually prefer, for example, especially if I'm a say GC, I want him to do maximum amount of damage. I actually prefer to bring more like Aurora or Virgo Shun for more kind of the utility and damage percentage increase or defense reduction rather than trying to bring a second DPS, etc. But that's something for yourself to try out. All right, now we move on to the lifeguards. So, like I said, they are absolutely essential to make sure your DPS in the first tier can actually survive long enough. Potomi, for Pandora and for Radamansis, I think Potomi is like the best character to make sure that you are able to survive for the whole battle. He can single-handedly, like 4 DPS plus Potomi is enough to survive in time Radamansis, from my experience. Pandora is a bit trickier. You kind of need other characters as well. Against Hypnos and Sanatos, Potomi didn't do too well, but just overall, he is very, very crucial when you need to kind of save yourself in any boss battle, just overall. So he's absolutely crazy. Aphrodite, he actually hits okay in terms of damage output because through his poison, but more what he's able to do is that his poison also acts as a debuff, so reduce the enemy's attack and defense, so that allows you to do more damage. And also, his poison can turn into healing for your whole team if everyone's already at full HP. So he kind of acts as more of a like utility character. He's able to debuff, debuff, and also healing all in one. So that's also what makes him really good. You don't have surplus shield. Shield obviously is there for that protection for the shield throughout. So obviously that can make sure you survive for a long time. And on top of that, his Constellation 9 also once again acts as a buff. So if I have to pick the best three, let's say utility character, it's definitely going to be Potomi, Aphrodite, and Surplus Shun. They are just kind of in a different level by themselves because they not only save your life, they also increase your damage output. So they're kind of overlap between the two tiers here. Next, we have Toronto and Hypnos. Now, I haven't actually used those two characters myself, so I'm kind of reading by the paper now. I know Sorrento is actually really good because before the last boss, Santos and Hypnos got nerfed, I know some people actually managed to survive for quite a bit of time with Sorrento, even though like at that point the boss damage output was absolutely ridiculous. Everything dies in kind of like 10 seconds, 15 seconds. But I know some people who have actually been able to use Sorrento to save their life for much longer battle duration. So that's why I know Sorrento works really well. I don't have him myself, so I haven't actually meant to test him. But judging by the fact that he can already, you know, do that well against a pre-nerfed boss, I'm gonna assume he is also gonna be extremely well to the boss after its nerf. So that's kind of what Sorrento is here. Hypnos, I'm also reading by a skill description on the fact that he can heal periodically. That just kind of by default makes him a lifeguard. Kind of he's able to help your team survive longer. So that's kind of what it is. Athena God Clause, once again, shield reduction, help you to live longer. Also increase the Cosmo, and that's very important for you to potentially do a bit more damage, charge up your ultimate quicker as well. So she's also very good. Sirius, I actually really like Sirius in the very last battle against Santos and Hypnos, because what happens is Santos try to reduce the maximum HP of your characters, which even if you have damage reduction, your max HP will be reduced. But what I found is that shield from Sirius works extremely well against against kind of like max HP deletion. I don't know whether it's because that kind of get activated on the shield and shield itself doesn't have a HP equivalent to it, and that's kind of why it doesn't actually reduce your own lifespan. But for whatever reason, Sirius just works really well in the last boss, so I highly recommend that. And also, he does give a starting Cosmo boost and also some kind of attacking speed or attack buff to everyone on the team. And because of the fact that your team could die very quickly, the fact that he's able to provide like a few seconds buff at the very beginning when you are likely going to be definitely still alive, or at least all five of your characters going to be alive, that's actually pretty good as well. So that's why he's also here. Aris Mu, obviously his healing from his crystal wall, that's just one of the best healing in the game. But on top of that, he has the ability to blind the opponents, and that's also why I have Isaac here. Blind is one of the few control effects that actually work on bosses, and if you are able to do that, then essentially you're immune to your whole team is immune to all damage for like 3 or 4 seconds. So that's also absolutely huge as well. So that's why they are very good as a lifeguard for your boss battle. Jermaine, debuff, like he is just there for the debuff. I haven't once again I haven't used him myself, but I know other people in my guild have used him and tried him, and his debuff is actually okay. So that's why he's here. Orphe is good only if in the battle against Radamanthus, I believe. He kind of almost works as another version of Potomi because he is actually able to control Radamanthus for whatever reason. So even if you only have like a 6-star or fee, apparently he can already control Radamanthus for the whole battle. So you can bring like 4 DPS plus 1 6-star or fee, and that works. So that's also good to know. Kazao, very similar to Pandora, have the ability to save someone from the brink of death with his telepathy effect, and that's going to be hugely beneficial in against Radamanthus, Pandora, and also in the last boss against Santos Hypno, so that's very good. Astro Hugo, needs Constellation 9, but once he have that, he essentially have the same kind of immortality ability as Casa, and he's able to do this for every single person on your team as well. So that's also absolutely massive. But this is only if you do have his Constellation 9. Seahorse Biome is very much determined on his positioning because he is able to put up his wave barrier on the other front row ally. So essentially he doesn't have to protect the whole team. However, he protects the other person up front. So if you do put a huge DPS like let's say Poseidon or put say a GC, then Secret Bind is able to ensure at least the two of them survive for a very long time. Even if the other three of your knights die, at least your main DPS is still there left standing. So that's why he's also quite good as a lifeguard. Astra Shun, I found really impressive. He is able to help a lot of the team to survive much longer just through his Halo passive effect. I don't even have him max close or max constellation. I don't even have any consolation on him, in fact. But he's already able to help the team out by quite a bit. So I'm actually really impressed by him. So definitely try him out if you haven't. Moses, once again, for the damage reduction, just help your team to live longer. Krishna, similar kind of thing. Opening shield to help your team survive longer. His ultimate also buff up the characters behind him. So he can also increase the damage output by a tiny bit as well. So that's also quite nice. Coming June give Cosmo, so that allows you to do ultimate quicker and therefore hit harder. So kind of help to the damage right there. But at the same time, she can also save someone from the brink of death. She heals up the person with the lowest HP, etc. So that's also very useful, especially in the last fight against Senators and Hypnos, because they tend to kill off your knights one by one rather than all together. So I also find Community quite nice there. Athena's ultimate is actually able to like if you have her close up, her ultimate is actually able to give like immortality for a few seconds, like 1 or 2 seconds to your whole team, which is absolutely crazy. But obviously you have to make sure she actually survive till that point as well. So, but yeah, she can definitely be there and change kind of the flow of the battle because she can prevent your entire team from dying for a few seconds. So that's why she's really good. All right, now moving on to each of the factions. Like I said, they are kind of the best of the rest, because they don't do amazing in boss battle in the sense either of their own damage by themselves or they are not able to help your team live longer, etc. However, normally for example, for water, I think there's still quite a few, and also for air, I think there are quite a few other knights that I didn't make it to the list. So the reason why I still made the five out of that is that the five I put here, generally speaking, even though they are not amazing in boss battle, they can at least still do a bit of damage. So in the very last push for trying to kill Santos and Hypnos one more time, if you just run out of stamina, everyone else, and you fill in the ones that I have shown on my screen here, they're not too bad. They're obviously not going to give you a huge amount of damage, but they're not too bad either. So that's kind of why I picked those five from each of the elements. So starting off with Saga Light, AoE damage, which is nice against the last boss because that's two people. Uh, Extremely good in PvE because he can sometimes like solo clear a stage. He's also very useful in the fights, even if it's not the element that you want him to be. So, for example, let's say you enter a PvE tile where everyone except the fire element gets that debuff and gets stunned or 50% HP reduction at start of battle. That doesn't actually affect Saga Light too much because what happens Saga Light with his constellation, he's just going to disappear into another dimension. He won't attack anyway because he's in another dimension, so it doesn't matter. He's stunned, and because he's healing himself during that time, he's actually pretty immune to those debuffs, and that makes him really good if for whatever reason your mono team didn't manage to quite kill off the entire stage, and you do need someone else try to kind of kill off the last 1 or 2 person, then Saga Light is actually capable of doing that. So that's why I really like Saga Light in PvE tiles. Gemini Cannon, once again, It normally allows you to kill off the stage quicker, which is sometimes important because you try to kill the stage in less than 30 seconds so you can get a bit more of the stamina back, etc. His damage output against boss is not awful either, especially because when he dies, all of the damage that has been inflicted will be doubled. So that's also quite nice. So he's also pretty good, and that's why he made it to the list. Evil Sega just hits hard. He is very strong at the beginning of the battle. Obviously, he gets weaker as the battle goes on. But if I have to use him in a boss fight, he won't survive for that long anyway. So basically, at least at during the time when he is alive, he have that insane buff. So that's why he's also good. Gemini Cannon is just really good in all kind of PvE because you are able to counter one particular enemy. So that's kind of why he made it list. Senators, I haven't fully tested that. On paper, I think he could potentially do okay in boss battles, and that's why I made it to the list. And also, I think this is actually all of the light and dark as well. I'm pretty sure there's no other light and dark which I haven't managed to slot in here. So that's kind of it. For the fire element, Sagittarius Seiya and Babel, they're really good in PvE, especially if you have Constellation 9 and Babel, which means that basically you will do like 20% higher damage at the start of battle because everyone's inflicted with that kind of burn or spark effect. And if you pair that up with Sagittarius Seiya, who have an opening attack and also release ultimate extremely far, those two together are really deadly in any kind of PvE where you need to use a mono fire team. So that's kind of the standard. The other three are picked purely for their ability to do a bit of damage in boss, but they all can actually survive for quite a bit of time. Like Dante, for example, hits quite hard because he consumes his own HP, but at the same time, he also have life steal, so he can get that back a lot of time as well. So that's actually decent in boss battle. You also have Phoenix, Leo Iki, and also Agate. They both have immortality effect in their kit. So once again, they can actually survive for at least a few seconds longer than any other one else, and therefore they just do more damage as a result as well. So they are actually decent for boss battle if you do have to use them when you're out of stamina on other nights. For water, Liver Shuru actually do okay in boss battle as well because he have this damage ignore in his kit, so that's quite nice. He is able to potentially help a lot in PvE as well, especially like because a lot of the other water knights are quite fragile. However, he can really tank and also do damage at the same time. So he is able to kind of turn quite a few battles in PvE for mono water team. Miro is not great in PvE. However, once again, I'm putting him as one of the five for water team purely because if you do have to use him for boss battle, he's actually pretty decent. Like he's not at the same level as any of the other character purely because he needs his needles to stack up, and sometimes because he just dies so fast. Until you stack up your 15 layers of needle, he essentially hardly do any damage. So his damage output is really not consistent in boss battle from what I've seen. Sometimes he can do a lot. Sometimes he dies before he is able to get 15 layers, even for the first time, and then he just do absolutely nothing. So very situational. Marine, once again, decent for boss battle because she can just keep on dodging. Very RNG based, but she can potentially turn out good for boss battle, so that's why she made it to one of the five for water. Desmos, just very good PvE. Like if anyone dies, then Desmos is able to help you to uh really clear that stage very quickly by absorbing their cosmo. So Desmos is just amazing in PvE. Niobe, I put him here mainly because once again, if you actually have a boss battle and you are bringing like Aphrodite or Pandora, Niobe can actually help your damage output by quite a bit. He can also dodge like crazy, potentially. Not quite as well as Marine, but he's in a similar kind of game mechanic. So once again, very RNG based, but can potentially do well in boss battle. So that's why he also made it to my top five for water. For air, start off with a Crest Camas and Crest Huga, which is kind of your staple freeze team. They are really good in PvE, especially across Hugo if you have his Constellation 9, because what happens is that he gets 5,000 starting Cosmo. So that allows him to release his ultimate really, really early on. And that's extremely helpful for you to, for two things. One, for PvE, where you try to clear the stage in less than 30 seconds for extra stamina back, but also in boss battle, because if you're going to die quickly anyway, make sure at least you release your ultimate before you die, right? And his starting 5,000 Cosmo can normally help him release his ultimate kind of like 5 or 6 seconds into the battle. And normally that's going to be before he died. But he's very fragile. He's normally like the first person to die. But at least with that starting Cosmo boost, he can at least release his ultimate before he dies. So that's why he's also decent against boss battle as well. Liverdoco able to give a buff for the whole team, and he himself also survived quite long. But once again, he is actually really good in boss battle, so that's why he also made it to the five. Misty, I was almost debating on whether I want to put Misty in the boss lifeguard because I think he can protect your whole team with his kind of shield and healing, etc. The main thing is I tried him a few times. Um, I still find like his healing is for whatever reason it's a bit slow. Like normally a few of my knights have already died before like he start healing. His ultimate is always slow, but his looping effect is quite slow as well. And I just don't think he protects the team as well as a lot of the other characters do. So that's why I kind of let him more into kind of the PvE stage. But you can potentially use him as kind of just save your life in boss battle. Then we have Papillon Mule. Papillon Mule is the well, he survived really long. Like he is the only other character other than say a GC I have seen who's can able to solo survive 90 seconds against Hypnos and Santos. So that's why he is so good. But he can only save himself. Like he doesn't help any of your other teammates to survive, and his own damage output is not great. So that's why he cannot be in a boss battle as a first choice, no matter in whatever position, even though he can survive the whole time. And that's why I think it's probably more suited for him to use in PvE instead. And finally, for the Earth Knights, like I said, most of the Earth Knights are actually really good for boss battle, and there's only other four remaining. So if you do have the Failure Earth team, unfortunately you have to play those four and also plus one of the other ones from your boss battles. So that's kind of it.